So then we are back with more information regarding the Aramaic English Renewed Covenant, and another important, very interesting topic regarding the scriptures, in a special sense regarding the renewed covenant. And speaking of an understanding from faith viewpoint through the Hebraic understanding of the Torah and the prophets, there are some very interesting boundaries, a person should say, regarding what it means to be a set apart versus Gentile or Goyim. The vengeance, we understand, is coming, and it's a part of the renewed covenant. The Remaised is the Torah vengeance. So from the perspective of the Hebraic line concerning the faith has to do with the Goyim, Gentile. Okay, so faith, mercy, grace, these are areas related only to the Goyim, Gentiles. The camps are always complete. There is no lack in the camp. They don't have to have faith. They don't have to have mercy. And they don't have to have grace. Because they are obedient already, 100% obedience to the Torah, the instructions and the prophets. So then we begin to understand every time there is the word set apart, then you link with camp and then link with the Torah. So then those are then set apart. Those are not the part of every very everyday conversation. So then every time we have this understanding of then the camp, then the Hebrews, the set apart, and then the Torah instructions plus the prophets, those are set apart. From the viewpoint of then the Goyim or Gentile, from the viewpoint of the faith, of the grace, of the mercy, we begin to understand that there are lines of understanding regarding then the revelation and the vengeance to come. So then observe very intently the revelation and the vengeance to come. The earth never experienced vengeance in the past. There were normal consequences of sin, but never vengeance from the viewpoint of the Creator. Observe how many times the nation of Israel had taken the time and not to study the Word. They did sin. So then with their sin came consequences of sin. Those were not vengeance. Those were normal consequences. But the time that's coming relating with the vengeance, the earth never experienced before. Back before the time of Yahshua, when there was sin detected, they would slaughter an animal or a bird, depending on where a person is coming from. But vengeance was never experienced before. It is the very wrath of Yahweh the Creator, because they are not being focused in what He taught. It was never experienced before. This period of grace that people were taking advantage of, it is a time where they don't understand the vengeance. And plus, the only Mashiach that there is, his name is Yahshua. Bears the name of the Creator plus Yeshua. So we understand it from the Hebraic understanding, from the time that they left Egypt, then they formed a group. And this group went near the mountain, they received the laws, then they set up the tent. So they were then set apart. that time when they began to relate with the Creator in the desert, they began to understand what it means to be set apart. So this area would never leave this age until its closing. So then in the future, they would have to be also in camps, as they were told to do. The Hebrews should not mix themselves with the trades of the world. Those are solely for the Gentiles. The Gentiles, they must rule their own governments. The Hebrews are the people only concerned and trained regarding the kingdom to come government in the capacity of the instructions, the Torah and the prophets. So then, the world then releases itself from the grip of these Hebrews. They were never meant to be mixed with the world. Then the Gentiles, then they have a chance of doing it on their own. So then when the Gentiles then would learn the faith in the capacity of faith, then they would use their understandings to do their own trade. And where there were problems, they would then ask and inquire of Yahweh at the gate of the Hebrews. The Hebrews then were the spokespersons of Yahweh. And then through them would come the functions, the 7 spirits, 7 functions. These would show the Gentiles that they are dealing with the Creator, because it's not coming from the Hebrews, coming from the Creator. 7 spirits of the Creator. The Hebrews are only then part of an area of a transmit of the information from the Savior, and He is in the Kadosh Kadoshims that comes from the Father, from Yahweh above. So then we begin to understand the importance, because vengeance is coming. Vengeance was never experienced before. And when the vengeance comes, every word the Creator has spoken must be done as per His teachings. Whatsoever Yahweh said must be done. Whatsoever Yahweh Yeshua said must be done. And whatsoever is away from those words that they spoke, those who are going to be then vindicated. It is a very trying time, a very, very time of tribulation, because every word then of the teachings are going to be coming to place. So then, whatsoever then the Hebrews are doing, they must then return to their camps and let then the Goyim do the work. This is what Isaiah 61st chapter stated it. That the land of Israel is going to be cleaned up. Those pagan people living in their land, they are going to be converted to the Mashiach. Try to understand, because they are going to serve the city. The city is going to be closed. They are going to be cleaned. Those pagan buildings are going to be out of there. And the city then is going to be closed, and then teaching the groups that would come to be taught, and they would go out then and they would form another holy land. And then the service area of the nation of Israel would then serve the city. This was the purpose. And then through this model, the other holy lands around the world would be modeled from. But the situation is this: there is a vengeance coming, and each then Hebrew not found in their legal parameters, they are going to start dying because of the nature of the vengeance. It is vengeance time. It is no longer grace. The time of sacrificing animals is gone. And the time of the grace period also is nearing its end. What's coming in the future is pure vengeance. What it means is then Satan, the adversary, the Hashtan of the facet of the destroyer, is coming then out of his prison. When he was first placed in 1009 because of the destruction of the tomb. The deceiving part of Nahashtan, or Satan, is releasing itself from the nearing line set in Shavuot. So then there's going to be in the world deceit and then destruction in a level that the earth never experienced before. It is a very, very, very dangerous time. Each word Yahweh spoke through His orders, through His laws, those are going to be counted, each of them. And each Hebrew then bound by a covenant of a dam covenant with Abraham. If they are not in their legal perimeters, they are going to die. Because it was never experienced before. Vengeance means every word not from what was spoken from the Creator is going to be vindicated. This is what vengeance means. It's not the fact of punishing the wrongdoers. This is the consequence. But the vindication, the vengeance means whatsoever is done besides what was spoken is going to be vindicated. Truly, this is the understanding from the heavenly viewpoint of the vengeance. That's why it's so dangerous. And then the renewed covenant state is a great tribulation. Tribulation is a minor word. Vengeance is the word to use. Absolutely deadly in its utmost form. So then it's a time of preparation for the Hebrews to return to their camps. Because we are living in a time of this a time of a reduction of time. So then the first 1,000 years after his ascension, his people had ruled. That's the first 1,000 years. The other 1,000 years, Satan the destroyer was put in prison. And then the deceit side of Satan then became in charge of the nearing line. The nearing line is the spiritual line that we understand today, but it's contaminated. As people they began to understand the salvation plan from the Creator ever since Egypt, they understand they must be in camps. Because those are legal prerequisites. They must be in camps being absolutely total loyalty to the instructions. Means the Torah, means the prophets. The Goyim outside, they take care of their own trade. They are living by faith in what Yahshua taught them, but in a level of capacity of faith. Then they do their own trade. The trade of the world was never meant for the set apart. The set apart always meant to be set apart. And they proclaim the kingdom to come government. And the kingdom to come government comes from the instructions. Torah, instructions, prophets, and then Torah grace, and then Torah vengeance. They should be the preparers of the world for the vengeance, but they themselves are lost in the world. So then try to understand from the Hebraic understanding ever since they left Egypt. In every word then during the time of vengeance, and when it's going to be this time of vengeance, when the reduction of time spoke of by Yahshua in the Matthew 24th verse, because the time would then be reduced for the sake of the elect. What does that mean? What does it mean? Before the vengeance, the deadly vengeance starts, they must return to their camps. This is what Yahshua meant, for the benefit of the elect. Elect is the set apart. So they are prepared for the vengeance. Then Revelation, the 20th chapter, verse 9 states, and they encircled the camps and the beloved city. This is what Yahshua meant, a reduction of time for the benefit of the elect. Before the vengeance, because when the vengeance comes, whatsoever is not found in the Torah and the prophets is going to be counted for. The Hebrews, they were never meant to be mixed with the world. Yahshua, when he came, he gave specific instructions for them that they would go out and they would form holy lands around the world. And it was for them not to be involved with the world's system. Those are for the Gentiles. Those are for the Goyim. Yahshua he said very plainly, very clearly, don't mix yourself with the world system. Be in a camp and be loyal to the covenant shown to you. Whatsoever Moses said for you to do and observe, these do and observe. He knew in the future they would go out then and they would form holy lands. And they were not to be mixed with the world's system. This system is for the Gentiles. So then, when they would exercise the faith capacity of the Gentiles, they would go and do their trade. That's theirs. When they would find areas they couldn't have an answer, what would be the understanding from the faith? Would then inquire of Yahweh. And then they would return to the camp and say, we have this problem, what is the opinion of the Creator? And then the Hebrews, that set apart, highly trained for a long time, would then function through the seven spirits and would give you the answer. And you would return to your duties and then it would work every time. And then later you would come back with the glad tidings and then it would be joy in the camp. This is very nice, and it was done before. But the situation at the moment is there is vengeance coming. Vengeance. It is so severe. If you take, for instance, the understanding of those souls, and those who were then in a spirit form shadow of souls, because it's in a spirit linking from heaven, then understand the severity. When they say, for how long are we going to wait? And then what was said in the line of the vision from heaven? A bit longer, until the death of the faithful. Faith has to do with the Gentiles. The Gentiles are outside of the camp. Until the faithful people are destroyed. Is that starting making sense? Every time you read faith, it has to do with the Gentiles, Goyim. The set apart, they are protected, divinely protected in the camps. Those can't be touched. But then the outside of the camp, the Gentiles, the faithful Gentiles in Yahshua, then they are going through a lot of tribulation. And every Gentile then is going to die. This is what it means. Not until then the faithful believers in Him would be then slaughtered. It's coming to a time where it's going to be so severe, won't have any more Gentiles that believes in Yahshua. They're going to be slaughtered. This is how severe the vengeance is. It's not a playground playing church or junkie preaching. This is very serious, never done before in the history of the earth. And this is what it means in Revelation. And there were the souls of those that found under the altar. But the altar is spiritual, so it was a shadow of the soul in the spirit, indicating the faithful Gentiles outside the camp. They are dying by the thousands. And when they said, for how long, how long? And then he said, it was granted to you already, and it is granted then for you to have the white robes. Only wait longer until they are exterminated, until the number of them are complete. Extremely severe. That's why great tribulation. And if it's severe to those outside, they are Gentiles, imagine to those from the set apart with a covenant. So then we start understanding then the severity of then what the future is coming. It is absolutely severe, beyond measure. We can't measure it in our human terms. So then that's why this time of reduction that we are living in is the time for then the Hebrews begin to return to their camps and be ready for the future. And they themselves should then prepare the Gentiles, because they are going to face a lot of tribulation. And this is from the Hebraic line of understanding, making sure that the set apart salvation plan remains intact. And these are, for instance, then the set apart people, the Hebrews, in their camps. They set up tents, tabernacle, and they do the usual service of the priestly as they did before, except understanding Hebrews chapter 7, there were changes made to the instructions of the Levites. But they continue the service in ministering to Yahweh Yeshua, because He's the link from earth to heaven. Heavenly legal terms. It is very severe. That's why this time is for then the Hebrews to release themselves from the trades of the world and dedicate themselves to Yahshua and Yahweh. Much more coming up.